All right, everybody, it is Mahadeva, the OG Thunder Wizard, and we're continuing with our Manifestation Mastery course, new series. What did I call it? The Omnipotence series, something like that. And I'm going to today share with you one of the most important fundamental things about life that people truly don't grasp for the most part, which is that everything in your existence is the result of a narrative, a story. And so we need to understand what those narratives are. And more importantly, what do you need to do to change them? Because nothing happens without there first being a narrative, a story. So imagine, for example, I think there's been movies like this where, I think it was a Will Ferrell movie, I forget what it was called. But he's going through life and he's hearing somebody narrating. And then things would happen, and he thinks he's going crazy because he hears this narrator narrating the things that are going on in his life. And then he finds out later that he's a character in a novel, and a writer is writing this novel around this character. And, so he's kind of helpless. And most people live their lives like this, and it's true. So everybody who talks about that we live in a matrix, everybody who talks about that we live in a fantasy world, that we live in illusion, all of those things are true. Now, the difference between somebody who lives in a world where evil alien overlord elite reptilians keep them trapped in a computer simulation and sucks the life force out of them. The difference between that and the guy who is in some novel where he is the hero and he is rich and successful and happy and full of love, and I don't know what's happening, but everything seems to happen my way. And the difference between those two people is the underlying narrative, the story that is creating their life. The exact same mechanism is going on with both of them, except one of them is happy, one of them is miserable. And then, of course, there's everything else in between, which is usually you and I. We're somewhere in between in that, on that spectrum. And if people can understand how this narrative works, and if you treat it really practically, and you learn the skills of how to understand the narrative and rewrite the narrative, you can literally write your own ticket through life. And this is something that we are talking about up here. Manifestation Mastery course. You go to thunderwizard.com, click around and subscribe at the Manifestation Mastery course. And we have just started the Omnipotence series. I've already uploaded one video. You can go and watch it there now for free. And I'm going to be talking about more things. So in the future, I'm going to be talking about the rules of how to do this, how to magically manifest anything and everything you want. I'm going to be talking about the limitations. So there is a limit. There are limitations to this, and you do have to know what those are. And I'll talk about the blocks, the specific things that block you from being able to manifest. Also, I recommend becoming a part of the 90-day Warrior Lightning Qigong, which is also at thunderwizard.com. Click around and subscribe for that. That will give you access to all of the Manifestation Mastery course and every other video on the Patreon site. You'll get access to all, who knows how many hundreds and hundreds of videos are there, learning everything from the mastery of shamanism to becoming Dr. Manhattan. Speaking of which, The Dr. Manhattan special is expiring July 1st. There's only 9 days left. You get the Maoshan Sorcery 5-element Kung Fu forms, which are the most powerful energetic practice on the face of the planet, in my experience. I've found nothing that comes even close to it. And I will also give you the lockdown package, which is something like a $3,000 valuable thing within itself. I wouldn't go into all the things. All of this is going away July 1st. If you get it now, you will save $6,000. You'll even save money on the 5-element Kung Fu if you get in on it now. But after the 1st, it will go away. So starting the 1st, July 1st, this is all going to be gone. So go check it out, and I strongly recommend you take advantage of it. And I promise you, I will end it. There have been times in the past where I've put specials up and then I keep it up, but not this time. Come July 1st, sometime during that 24-hour period, it will be gone. So I recommend checking it out. All right. So let us talk about how to become omnipotent. We talked about before, which I go into detail on the thunderwizard.com site, the omnipotence interface components. You have your soul, you have your mind, you have your personality software, which is where the narrative is really created and enacted. That's in your lower self. You have the upgrade sensor, which is your higher self. You have the 3D interface software, which is your intellect. So today we're going to be talking about the first and the third of these interface components, the soul and the personality software. All right, so you get the idea that your life is like living in sorry, I want to get rid of these because they're distracting me. Your life is like living in a narrative. You are the main character in a novel that somebody is writing. They're writing it right now. And your life is playing out. And you're watching it. You interact with it. You think it's happening to you. But what's happening is that somebody is writing a story for you. Now, if you're a religious person, you'll say it's God. That God has a path for you and God has a plan for you. And so it's this battle between God's will and the devil who's trying to sabotage your ability to follow God's will. And so, yes, life plays itself out and you pray to God saying, God, what is your will for me? It's as if you're going to the person on the desk computer, their laptop, and they're writing out the story. And you're like, as the character saying, okay, writer, what am I supposed to do today? That's one way of looking at it. But if you understand these components that we're talking about, then you understand that your soul, your eternal self, is in fact God. That there is no being greater than your own soul. So the soul is the narrative that you want to follow. All right? So there's at least 3 narratives that end up playing a part in this. The first one is the narrative of your soul. So let's write that down. So the first one is the narrative of your soul. Second one is the narrative the narrative of your lower self, which is your psyche. And then the third narrative is other people's agenda. So these are the 3 narratives that we could go deeper, but we'll just deal with these 3. These are 3 narratives that can determine your entire external existence. Now, obviously, the third one is not the ideal one, because then you will feel like a victim. You will feel controlled by other people. You will resent everybody in the world if their agenda for you is how you live. And let me not minimize this. You can say that, oh, of course, I don't want anybody telling me what to do. And every one of us is influenced by this. It is not so easy just to say, I'm not going to let anybody tell me what to do. It's not that easy. Your survival depends upon being a part of this society, being accepted by other people. Your survival depends on it. You don't believe me? Get rid of your bank account, get rid of your social security card, get rid of everything that connects you to the government and to society. You know, you'll find out very quickly you won't be able to survive. You know, homeless people should be able to survive very well. All we have to do is go back in time, 3,000 years, depending, a couple hundred years, depending on where you live. And people used to be homeless. They used to just have whatever on their back, and they had a bow and arrow, and that was it. And they were able to make a home, they were able to eat, they were able to live just fine. So being homeless, not having money and not having a home shouldn't be enough to keep you from surviving. But in our world, it is. You will be on the very fringes of existence, and you may not survive, because you have to be part of this society, which means you have to have a bank account, social security card, a driver's license, some kind of identification. You have to have all this stuff. You won't be able to survive. So just because I say other people's agenda for you, this is a narrative. Just because I say that and it's obvious that that's something you don't want, that doesn't mean that you've accomplished that. The majority of people, whether they realize it or not, are spending a lot, if not the majority of their energy, trying to live to fulfill other people's agenda for you. So let's go back to the soul. So the goal of all of this is to live the narrative that has been pre-written for you by your own soul. Your soul is infinite, it is omnipotent, it is beyond space-time, it is beyond any narrative. So let me be really clear about this. I'm making a very bold statement here. There are people in this world who suffer from very serious mental disorders, mental illnesses. And these people, we would say they're crazy. They're insane. They don't know what's going on. We have to take them out of the equation here. But the truth is that they many times have chosen to allow a narrative to determine their reality. And that narrative is that they're crazy. So it's their own narrative. Let me give you an example. There's a mental illness called borderline personality disorder, which is extremely toxic. It's a very horrible thing for people to live with, and it's toxic to be around people that have this. They're very destructive in their relationships, and they can be really, really, depending on what other things they got going on and how bad it is. And this is seen as an extremely difficult mental illness to treat, and it is seen as incurable, that they will never be free of this. And I was listening to a psychologist who was talking about how, in his experience with the borderlines that he's worked with, he's come across borderlines who, if they were to get better, it would make it difficult for them to get along with their family. That their family was so dysfunctional that their role in the family was to be the crazy, destructive borderline. And that if that person didn't fulfill that role of being the crazy, destructive borderline, the family dynamic would come apart. And so all of the other dysfunction in the family dynamic would then come to the surface. So the borderline acts as this scapegoat that draws away all of the attention from all of the other dysfunction in the family. And so there's been borderlines when they are given the opportunity to change and heal. You know, like the family sends them off to therapy. You need to go to therapy. You're so screwed up. They don't look at themselves. They just send the borderline off to therapy. That the borderline, when they think about it, if they started to heal or change, to evolve and to grow, they would then become, castigated and might even make it difficult for them to survive in the family. And so in order to survive, they've realized they keep doing this and acting this crazy way so that they can keep the balance of all the craziness in the family. So that's an example of somebody who's allowing somebody else's agenda become their narrative. So your soul has a narrative that was written. You wrote it because you are your soul. Your soul wrote the narrative before you were born based on what it wanted. So the truest essence of you has a desire that it wants to fulfill in this life. And so that is the narrative it has written. And that narrative of the soul will be your highest potential. It will be an absolute fantasy novel. It will be unbelievably blissful and amazing and dramatic, whether you're the hero that works through difficult challenges to rise and become, the hero that saves everybody, or if you are the luckiest person in the world where everything just magically happens for you and you have no problems. Whatever that is, the soul narrative that you come here with will be the most fulfilling, and it will be absolutely magical beyond your wildest human imaginations. So having said that description, you can imagine now there's a small percentage of people who actually fulfill this. Many people don't completely fulfill the narrative of their soul. And that's okay. That's part of the deal. That's why we reincarnate. Because if you got it perfect the first time, you wouldn't reincarnate. You reincarnate and you choose to make things challenging and difficult and fun and dramatic and all that so that you can keep coming back, because this is fun. The soul loves incarnating. You as a human don't like it, but that's part of the game. It's built into the game that you're going to have difficulty with it and want out, because when you then finally achieve and overcome the challenges, it becomes that the victory is that much more sweet and amazing and beautiful. So that's your soul's narrative. Then we have the narrative of your lower self. And this is the one that matters the most, because this is the one that's going to determine what actually happens in your life. This one is the closest thing to God for humans that there is. In fact, Jehovah, the being known as Jehovah, written about in the Old Testament of the Bible, and God the Father in the New Testament, this is actually the narcissistic lower self. That is why in that narrative, the Bible, God is all powerful. And God's wrath is unbelievable, because your lower self wants to have this experience of you. Your lower self, when Moses sitting there in the burning bush is saying, take off your sandals, for the ground you're on is holy. I am that I am. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. I have chosen you. This is your lower self. This is your psyche. And just as Jung said, he said, you have to make that which is unconscious conscious, or it will control you and you will call it fate, which is another way of saying it will control you and you will call it God. And that's why people, they ask for God's will. And this is why in the biblical narrative, you don't know God's will. You can't ever know God's will. You just have to surrender to it. And God's ways are not man's ways, and it won't make any sense. And wisdom, God's wisdom is folly to human beings. This is just a really, really effective way of justifying all of the craziness that you're going to create for yourself. Well, we don't know God's ways. I don't know why. God works in mysterious ways. When what's really going on is it's not all that mysterious. Your unconscious issues, for good or for evil, are creating a narrative that you think you're living. You think you are being controlled and manipulated by this outside force that's infinite, which is really your own narcissism. It's your own narcissistic ego. And so when you know what that narrative is, it'll explain everything in your life. Now, it's not possible. What people try to do is they try to understand the narrative. This is what psychology is. Psychology is merely the attempt to try and understand the unconscious narrative that is directing your life that you think is happening to you when you're the one doing it. But what the failings of psychology, and don't get me wrong, I have a therapist. I go to group therapy. I believe in psychology. I think it's one of the most valuable tools that I have. And what it's good for is it helps you uncover what the narrative is. You learn what is in your unconscious. But just knowing what's in your unconscious will not change the narrative, and it will not give you power to change the narrative. In fact, it can make things worse because there's nothing more, there's no feeling of powerlessness more than knowing why you're doing what you're doing and not being able to stop yourself. And this happens a lot. So that's the failing of psychology. Psychology believes that if it can bring the awareness of the unconscious to the conscious mind, that then you'll be able to change it. But the truth is, that's not always the case. You need something else. That's what this is, 90-day challenge. 90-day warrior lightning qigong is that other thing, that power that you can tap into, which gives you the ability to not only become aware of the unconscious narrative, but to change it. And so the ideal is that you have the power to create your own narrative. And ideally, you want to be conscious of what your soul narrative is, what I call the soul desire, which in the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, that book that I wrote, and the videos on that tell you what that's all about. So the soul narrative is expressed through you as a desire. It's a soul desire. And your only job in this life, your only job in this life is to obey your soul as if it were God, and live your desire or die trying. That's it. You don't have to figure anything else out about life. That's it. That's all you got to know. Now, because you have created this virtual reality to be challenging and fun for the soul, it's not that simple. Pretty much everybody that I've worked with, at some point we start talking about this. And I've had no shortage of people whom I've worked with, and I'm prepared for this to not happen, but so far there hasn't been anybody whom I haven't been able to help them discover what their soul desire is within a 1-hour session. By the end of that 1-hour session, they know, they're very clear on what their soul desire is. Whether they follow through on it or not, or whether they wake up the next day believing what their soul desire is, that's out of my hands. I don't have any control over that. But that's it. I've learned. That's the only thing that you have to worry about. The only thing you have to worry about is know what your soul wants to experience and then go do it, no matter how impossible, no matter how immoral, no matter how silly, no matter how unproductive, no matter whatever negative thing you can say about it, because it will be. One of the other rules is that you will have unconscious resistance to your soul desire. You built that into the game. Otherwise, the game wouldn't be fun. It would be too easy. So you will have resistance to following your own soul desire, and very likely you will have people in your life who will be resistant to you living your soul desire. And this is designed. Now, everybody's at a different level. For some people, things just come easily. They figure it out. They go do it. They have some ups and downs, but their life is great. We all wish we had their lives. And there are some people where, the obstacles are unbelievably impossible. Stephen Hawking, a man who was instrumental, probably, on the level of Einstein. Maybe even we'll find out later he had more influence than Einstein. He was one of the premier minds of, the past 1,000 years. And he had a physical condition where he was incapable of doing anything. And yet he was able, with that obstacle, to be the most influential mind in science that we've seen. So some people are going to have obstacles, and this is part of the narrative. The narrative is, if the narrative is working for you, the obstacle is something that you relish overcoming. If your narrative is being written by your lower self or by other people, your obstacles will prevent you from achieving what you want. And so you have to decide the narrative you're going to write, the narrative you're going to fulfill, has to be the hero overcoming all obstacles. This is just the basic thing. Anything having to do with literature, good movies, good literature. This is why television is so boring, because television, because you have to watch it for months and months, and there's some good TV shows, but for the most part, it's just superficial dribble. It's pandering. It's a way of anesthetizing yourself. You come home from work and you just watch stupid, ridiculous reality TV. It's just a way of anesthetizing yourself from the misery of your boring job that you can't stand, or your boring marriage that you've allowed yourself to be in, or your loneliness and your misery, whatever it is. It's one of the opiates of the masses that keeps people in the cog of the machine of going to work and blah, 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 blah. But real art always has the same theme. There is an underdog who is chosen by the universe to become the greatest hero. And the challenges are unbelievable, but the payoff that this is the greatest thing anybody could ever do, and that's why it's fun to watch. You watch the hero overcoming insurmountable odds to achieve his soul desire, to be his best self. That's all every good movie is, when you get it down to its bare knuckles. That's all it is. And the reason why we watch these movies and read these books is because we resonate. We know that we are having this happen, that we are in this incredible story. We may not see it in our lives. We may wish we had that in our lives, but the truth is you can have it if you choose. Just depends on which narrative you're choosing to live out. So I want to read a comment left by somebody on the channel, which is has some, it'll create some good discussion. Bear in mind, if you leave a comment on the YouTube channel as well, not just the live, but on the channel itself. The whole world sees it, and I very well may make a whole video out of it. So if you don't want me to talk about you and what you've said, if you don't want me to analyze you, then don't leave a message or don't leave a comment. But the whole world can see it anyway, so I'm not outing you. And I didn't come knocking on your door saying, hey, will you leave a comment on my channel so I can talk about you? So this is from somebody. This is a great handle. Somebody's called themselves Doc Manhattan's Intern. I don't know if I know this person or not. I don't know if they've done that because I'm constantly talking about Dr. Manhattan. Maybe that's my grandiosity. Or if they were already Doc Manhattan's intern before they came onto my channel. In any case, Doc Manhattan's Intern says, in response to my previous video where I ask, what if you had magical powers you could make anything happen? This person gives a great answer. This person says, if I had magical powers to make anything happen, of course I would be able to live my life as I see fit, and without really caring about mundane things like survival or money, since I would have the means and the power to not need to even think about it. And I'm sure most people would think like this. That's actually not true. Not everybody thinks like that. But that is a great response. And I liked it so much that I said, that's easy. Because I agree. I think that is the perfect way. You know, all the other stuff are details. But that's the perfect way to look at it. To live your life as you see fit, assuming that as your soul sees fit, without caring about anything. In other words, you trust the universe to take care of all of your physical needs, like survival or money, and have the power not to even think about having that. That's a really simple. He didn't say, I want to have 6 mansions and 5 bikini model wives and, have superpowers and be 20 feet tall and be Mr. Olympia. And he didn't say any of that, and be like Superman and be able to, bounce bullets off my chest. He didn't say that. He just got to the best response I could come up with, which is be able to live my life as I see fit without really caring about mundane things, about survival or money, since I would have the means and the power not to need to even think about it. Like I said, it was so good. I said, that's easy. His response is, you mean easier said than done. Achieving such power is no easy feat, because if it was, then everybody or most people would already have done it. That's an assumption. That is an unproven assumption, but it's an understandable one. But I disagree. It is the most simple thing anybody can do. And in fact, all of your energy wants to do that. So then the question is, why don't they? So the real question is, he could ask, if achieving such power is if achieving such power is such an easy feat, why is not everybody already doing it? That's an even better question. But I responded back to him and I said, hey, speak for yourself. It's very easy for me. I do it every day. I've learned the secret. I know exactly how to live life. I do. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't challenges that I have to go through. It doesn't mean that I don't have other unresolved things that I have to learn just like everybody else, but I know exactly what the purpose of life is. I already know. I don't sit around thinking, what is the purpose of life? I know exactly what the meaning of life is. I have no confusion about that whatsoever. My life, everybody else's life too, is there's just one thing you need to do, and that is to live what your soul wants to experience, and do it even if it kills you. That's important. You have to do it even if it kills you. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how impossible, you have to do it. So the only thing that stands between you and doing what this guy says, which is, again, I couldn't have said it better myself, which is to live your life as you see fit without caring about mundane things like survival or money, because you would have the means and the power to not even think about it. The only thing that prevents one from doing that is their narrative. That's it. I'm not minimizing the narrative. Don't get me wrong. The narrative has the power of an evil spell or a curse. It is the most powerful thing in your life. It is more powerful than anybody outside of you. There is no person, there is no government, there is no being, there is no god or goddess or anything in existence that is more powerful than your narrative. That's why, as I said, in the Old Testament, Jehovah, I am that I am, is omnipotent and omniscient and all-powerful, because that's what the Bible is about. The Bible is not about living your soul desire. The Bible is about living your narrative, the narrative of your lower self, the psyche that has created the narrative. Jehovah is nothing more than the narrative of your lower self that is dominating and controlling and guiding your life. Oh, if I just knew, please God, show me what your will is. Well, God's will is inscrutable, and I thought I wanted to be a ballerina, but I ended up, working in a mission in some third world country, and I got malaria and dong fever, and I lost a leg, but nobody, this is God's will, and it's not what I wanted, but God wanted that for me. No, that was your narrative. You succumbed to your narrative. Your soul wanted you to be a ballerina. You chose to follow your narrative. So how do we change the narrative? I've gotten through saying that psychology will not tell you what you need. Philosophy will not tell you what you need. The law of attraction will not tell you what you need to change your narrative. Religion will not give you the power to change your narrative. So how do you change your narrative? There's only one way out. You have to change your narrative through actions. This is, I think, the most fundamental thing. If everybody in the world could understand this and adopt this, that what's most important is they take appropriate action towards their soul desire, nothing in the world will stop you. It doesn't mean that you will be free of challenges, because you won't. It doesn't mean that you won't run the risk of losing your life, because I won't say that. It means that if you listen to your soul and take actions, the narrative will change. But there's something that might not change, and this is the hardest part. This is the hardest part for most of you. The hardest part for most of you is that taking actions on your soul desire may never change your internal experience. It may never change your feelings. It may never change your internal narrative may never go away internally. Your external narrative will change, but your internal narrative may never change. Nobody wants to hear that. What people want to hear is, and for many people who say, I want to have the power to live my dreams, what they mean is they want to feel a certain way. They want to have a feeling of confidence or power or happiness or fearlessness or something like that. And this is a lethal mistake. If you are waiting to feel empowered, it may never come. If you do find a feeling of empowerment, there's a good chance it won't stay. It will stay for a short while, and then it will disappear. And then you'll be back to your narrative. And if your narrative says whatever it says, and if you are operating from your feelings, meaning your feelings have to dictate your actions, then your narrative will then shut you down. So if you grew up with a narrative, I've used this example before. Let's say your father was a Baptist minister, and he somehow got the impression, because he grew up in the 20s, that only evil rich people had money. His dad didn't have any money, and his dad died broke working for the railroad. And so he became a minister to fight against the injustice of the system. And so he railed in his sermons about the evil of money and greed, and he loved to say money is the root of all evil, which actually is not what the Bible says. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. That money is the root of all evil, and so therefore a truly spiritual person must be dirt poor. In fact, you have to prove to God, you have to carry your cross, you have to be miserable, and that shows your righteousness, and you're a righteous, good person, because as Jesus said, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, right? So you grew up with that narrative, and that narrative programmed you to be poor. That narrative programmed you to not have money. Now, you grew up, you created your own awareness of the world changed around you, you hated Dad and his religious nonsense and his weird abuse and whatever was going on with Dad, and you went through the hippie movement and you smoked weed and went to Woodstock, and so you don't buy into that, and you've now come into the idea that what you want is you want money. And you know that money is not a bad thing, that money is not evil, that there's nothing wrong with having a nice house and a nice car and having a comfortable bed and going on vacations to Hawaii, and all this stuff takes money, and so money is great, and you've decided that you want that. But no matter how hard you try, you just can't make any money. You're always struggling. You almost get it. If you get it, you lose it. You know, the majority of people who win the lottery lose it all and are worse off than they were before. That's obvious. They were poor beforehand. That's why they went to go, get the lottery tickets, because their narrative said that if they had money, it would all be okay. And they get the money and they spend it all, and then they're worse than they were before. Because their narrative is that they're poor. You're poor. You need to win the lottery. So they're back where they started, needing to win the lottery. That's their narrative. So if your narrative is to be poor, because that's an evil thing, and that's a really strong defining characteristic. It's a really strong judgment. If Dad said that people who are evil have money, then you'll never unconsciously be able to equate having money without being evil. And you don't want to be evil. Nobody wants to be bad. So your unconscious narrative keeps thwarting whatever actions you take, and you can never make enough money. So that's the battle between the psyche narrative and other people's agenda. That's the battle that goes on. It's a horrible battle. You'll never win. So the only other narrative that we want to focus on is the soul narrative. Now, the soul narrative will not necessarily change any of your feelings about yourself. So get rid of that. If you're coming onto my channel hoping that I'm going to give you something that Zohar the Magnificent in the Law of Attraction promises to give you, which is, I'm going to give you good feelings, and now you'll be able to have these good feelings, and you'll focus on love and light will come to you. I'm never going to tell you that. I'm never going to tell you that you will be free of your negative feelings, because it's just not possible. Some of you will have far worse internal feelings than others. But that has nothing to do with the narrative. The narrative can be changed by only one thing, and that is the actions that you take toward your soul narrative. Your soul narrative, which may be completely different. So if we go back to the example of the guy who grew up with the religious father who told him that only poor people are good and anybody who has money is evil, and he was angry and bitter, and he died, from whatever, liver cancer, from being so full of rage and resentment. And that's what you relate to religion and spirituality, is people being angry and poor and dying miserable deaths. So you're going to do something different. The way isn't to do the opposite, which is what the law of attraction very often creates. So people go to these law of attraction meetings and they make these vision boards. And in their vision boards, they have a big car and they have a big house and they have a beautiful wife, or they have a whatever their vision board is. And, if you've ever done anything like that, which I have, sometimes it starts to work and then it just fades and then everything ends up back where it started. You end up back in the same old narrative. So why does that not work? Because that isn't necessarily what your deepest desires are. So on a daily basis, one of the things I do when I do my daily ritual is I have, we could call it a positive affirmation, we could call it a prayer, whatever it is. But I say to the universe, I say, bring me my deepest soul desires. I say this every day. I think every day I wake up, when I have spare time and I'm thinking about my life, I ask myself many times a day, what is it that I really want? What is it that I truly want? What truly makes me happy? Not even if it's impossible, because I've already proven the impossible numerous times. I've achieved the impossible more times than I can count. So I already know from my experience that if I know what it is that I want, and then I start doing that, even if I don't have the ability to do it, I'll achieve the impossible. The impossible is nothing. You may not know that, but I can tell you from my experience it absolutely is the case. And it still doesn't make me feel perfect all the time. It doesn't make me feel like I'm, squirting orgasms 24 hours a day. I would love that, but that's not what's happening a lot of the time. I may even have all of my fantasies being fulfilled, and I'll still be full of fear, doubt, shame, confusion, all the same things you have. The only difference is my external world looks pretty good. Whereas before, my internal world and my external world looked the same. So it's just part of the deal. I just accept that, my feelings are not always going to match up to the perfection I have around me. If you do better than me, which I hope you do, then it'll be even better for you. So that's the bottom line. The only thing that's going to change your narrative are the actions that you take. Actions change things. Feelings do not. You see sometimes written, thoughts change things. They don't. Thoughts are just that. They're thoughts. They mean nothing. Except how you respond to them. That means everything. Feelings do not determine what comes to you. I mean, on some level, of course, that's true. If you walk around thinking that your neighbor hates you and you look at him and sneer at him and say, why do you hate me so much? You're such an asshole. And you go over and you slash his tires because you think he hates you. Well, eventually he's going to hate you. So you can create that. So that's, the law of attraction isn't completely off on some of the things, but in terms of your narrative and in terms of where you end up in life, in terms of your external reality, that is the result of the actions that you take based on the narrative that you choose to adopt. And I'm here to tell you that there is one narrative, if you adopt it, it is infallible. It will give you absolutely everything. And that narrative is what your soul tells you. You may not identify with it. This is also important. You may not identify. Like my name, Mahadeva, that is my soul's identity. I can talk to you about Mahadeva, my soul. I can tell you about what it is. So I strive to become that perfection. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it at all. But I've seen if I align myself with that name and everything that I connect to that name, the narrative of that name is created around me, and it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable when you think you're supposed to be down here when the world starts treating you that you're up here. This is called self-sabotage. This is why people sabotage good things, because they can't tolerate not identifying. This is where you are, and you feel yourself down here, but this is where you are. So we sabotage this so that we can feel comfortable, because at least we understand it. So this is people's false humility. They sabotage their success so that they can feel authentic, because they feel like they're faking it. They feel like they're lying, and they can't tolerate that feeling. So Mahadeva is my highest expression of myself, and I'm continuing to live and allow myself, and my spiritual work I'm doing to stretch myself to become that. It's not easy. The difficult part isn't achieving it. That's actually the easy part. The difficult part is allowing it and being okay with, I don't feel like that. I don't feel worthy of this. That's the hard part. But this is our narcissism that we're ready to, hopefully ready to move beyond. Okay? So I'm starting to babble here, but that's the point here. The point here is that the only thing that you have to do is know what your soul wants to experience, and then do it. You don't have to understand anything else. You don't have to know anything else. You don't have to feel a certain way. In fact, I want you to get used to doing things that are completely opposite from what you feel. And I want you to get rid of the assumption that I have to feel something in order to do something, because you don't. And I'll shut up with this before I take any questions. One of the best examples of this is the Vedic astrological concept of the Aruta Lagna. The Aruta Lagna is in everybody's chart. Everybody has one. You have yourself, which is how you experience yourself. And as most people say, if you go on to dating sites, you'll see this all over the place. I just want somebody to love me for who I am. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. Nobody truly knows who you are. Only you know who you are. So that's unfortunately a sad thing. People respond to your aruda, which is your reflection. And your reflection, which you can't change, which is just like your skin color and your eye color and your height, your sex, these things really can't be changed. You were born with it, you know what I'm saying. Your essence can't be changed, and you can't change your aruda. Which means that even though you have an experience of yourself, when you walk in the room, everybody sees your reflection, and they treat you like you're the reflection, which can, if you feel opposite of your aruda, can be very disconcerting, because you feel like nobody sees you, nobody gets you. But if you allow yourself to take on the role of the aruda, and you let yourself be seen and experienced that way, in other words, you don't try and talk people out of their experience of you, and you, not only that, but you empower it and you seek to really present it and project that, even if it's a false self, you will succeed. Now, you can't choose your aruda. Your aruda was chosen for you before you were born. But that's what we're talking about, is that your highest essence of your soul may be completely different from all these other narratives. The narrative that you're no good, you're not good enough, nobody loves you, nobody wants what you have to say, you're not attractive, whatever your narrative is. It doesn't matter. The narrative of your soul is the only thing that matters, and you can feel and identify with these other narratives. You just don't put any energy into them. Just don't seek to make them happen. Don't buy into them. But don't deny that you feel that way. and then go out and be this false person. For me, Mahadeva, when I think about Mahadeva and I want to be that, you know, and the more comfortable I get allowing myself to be seen that way and seen like as my Aruda, even though I don't relate to it, I'm more successful, I have more money, I have more love, I have more health, I have all kinds of things. And then you start to feel like there's this benevolent power that is giving you all of these gifts. So you have the opposite experience that most people have about God's will, which is God's, you know, has this will for you, and you have to sludge and carry your cross, and you have to go through all this stuff. And you know, they'll say, I don't know, you know, God's will, and you know, God wanted me to learn this horrible thing and lose a foot in the war, and you know, God wanted all this. This was God's will for me. It wasn't what I would have chosen for myself, but I'm not God. You can have the opposite experience where you are having absolutely everything. You can have all the wealth that you need, the love, the health, and all the stuff that you don't feel you deserve, you are uncomfortable with. And then when you let yourself have that, when you act on your soul desires, then there's going to be this feeling that there's this benevolent God who is controlling your life and giving you nothing but good things all the time. But it's all your narrative. You choose the narrative. So you can't change your narrative or how you feel about it. But you can take control of the actions that you take, and that can change your narrative. All right? At the risk of repeating myself, I'll stop there. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Vincent.thunderwizard.com says hello. If you want to learn about your Aruda, you can get a reading from him, and his website is vincent.thunderwizard.com. And if you want me to shout your name every time I do a live thing, then you need to go and get the lockdown package so that you can, which is lockdown.thunderwizard.com. But if you really want the ultimate, you know, and every now and then I give you the one package which gives you everything. And the most latest one that we have is the Dr. Manhattan package. If you get the Dr. Manhattan package, you will get access to becoming a certified astrologer or rune reader, which means that when you get certified by me and you come on to these live chats and you put your name and you say hello, I am going to plug your website. Okay, if you want that, you can go to get the Dr. Manhattan package. Dr. Manhattan, no doctor with no period, Dr. Manhattan at thunderwizard.com. But that is going to be dead by July 1st, so you better hurry up. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the questions. Jade Dragon, welcome to the channel. So I've seen your name before. So remember, the two most important things in life are paying attention and putting effort. What is it that I tell people to do? I want them to write honest questions. When they write a question, what I want you to do is write the word question in all caps. So now that you've been on the channel, you're not new, you should know how to do that. When you follow my instructions, you make me happy, which makes me want to answer your question. So you give a statement, which I'm not interested in. Then you have a question, which I would have missed if I wasn't looking hard enough because you didn't follow my directions. But I'll answer it anyway. Is the soul the same as listening to your heart? Welcome to the channel. What do you think? If you've watched my videos, which I recommend that you do, so this tells me you haven't watched a lot of my videos. That also doesn't enthuse me to answer your questions. So if you watched my videos, you'll know that the heart center is the home of the soul. That the soul lives right here. If you go to the, I know you're not doing this because you'd know this. You wouldn't have to ask that question. The thunderwizard.com Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. If you were subscribed to that, you would already know the answer to this question. You wouldn't have had to ask me. But that is true. Your soul is in your heart. So to listen to your heart, well, let me put it this way. Listening to your soul is listening to your heart. Listening to your heart isn't always necessarily listening to your soul, but listening to your soul will always be listening to your heart. Your soul has your truest heart's desires in it. The heart can be deceived, and the heart can operate from lower vibrations and higher vibrations, immature and mature responses. So I'm not going to give you, every time you listen to your heart, you're listening to your soul. But the soul dwells in the heart center, surrounded by the power of lightning, power of the goddess of lightning, which is your true Shakti, your true mother. Jameson, response to movie name, Stranger Than Fiction. Oh, is that what? Okay, that was the movie. Who was the guy? Yeah, that was the Will Ferrell movie. I barely remember it, but he thought he was in or it turns out he found out that he was a character in somebody's novel. Jameson, honest feeling. Learning that I may be in relations due to wounds. What he means by that is that the highest ideal for a relationship is to focus on connecting on your strengths. Choosing to be with somebody because your strengths come together. But the majority of relationships, especially karmic relationships, twin souls, by the way, twin flame relationships are always what I'm about to describe. Twin flame relationships are people binding themselves based on their wounds, which is not your soulmate. It is not your highest. It's not your best partner. It's just somebody who buys into your unconscious narrative. You think it's your twin flame, but it's not. It's like thinking Jehovah is God. He's not. Jehovah is your narcissistic ego. Your twin flame is just the reflection of your narcissistic wounds. It's not somebody that you truly connect with. So, I mean, if I thought that was my calling, I would be talking about that more often. But that's just, that whole twin flame thing is nonsense. Anyway, so you say, learning that I may be in relations due to wounds, I'm wondering how to tell the difference between accepting others and where they are at in their soul journey and when I should walk away. Well, Jameson, as we know, your thing is you are too hard on yourself. You overthink everything. So the thing to do is do the 4 things I tell you to do, on the other channel, and talk to your sponsor and meditate and just do your best, and you will make mistakes and you will learn from them. Stop letting your fears and your confusions make you incapacitated. It makes you unable to do anything. You become paralyzed. So it's okay that you have these questions. Just know that that's your thing. Your thing is to overthink and overanalyze everything and to judge yourself too much. It's okay. Just do the best that you can and then make mistakes and learn from them. That's what life and recovery is all about. Jameson's son, question: does that principle of allow feels apply to soul journey narratives of others? I don't know what that means. Judging myself for desiring selectivity about who I let in. So you're asking the same question again. Again, my answer is the same. Just stop trying so hard. Stop trying to be so perfect. That's your thing. Your thing is your narrative is, I have to be perfect or I'll die. And I'm never perfect. There's always something wrong with what I'm doing, so let me hyperanalyze. Just live life, man. Just don't be so hard on yourself. And while you're doing that, you can have all those fears of not being perfect. You can analyze yourself to death all you want. Nobody's going to take that away from you. Just take the appropriate action and let yourself have whatever feelings you have. And over time, it'll get better. Kevin Kong, question: will a partner affect the lower self? What do you think? I wish you would ask your real question. When you say, oh, answered with Jameson, honest feeling. Okay, so I answered that. I don't know what I said. But your partner not only will affect your lower self determines your partner. So let me be clear about the lower self. The lower self is neither good nor bad. We talk about all of the bad things because that's what's giving us the most pain. That's what we want to change. But your lower self is doing all kinds of good things all the time. So karma, for instance, people talk about karma. Karma's not bad. There's good karma and bad karma. I'm 50, almost 58 years old. I've got the heart of an athlete. When I go and measure my heart rate and I look at it, I've got the heartbeat at age 57 of an athlete. I am an athlete, but that's because I work out a lot. I exercise a lot. I get plenty of rest. I don't put garbage into my system. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I make sure that I treat myself well to the best of my ability. And I exercise a lot. I go to the gym 3-4 times a week. I surf, twice a week, and I push my body to the limit. And the result is I've got the heart of an athlete. I'm in better shape than, a lot of people of any age. That's good karma. So you have all kinds of good karma. Your heart is beating. You're able to breathe. If you're not thinking about your breathing, you're able to breathe. Your heart beats 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of your organs are functioning. You have a car. You have a place to live. You're not in prison. You have all kinds of good karma going for you, but we don't think about that because what's the point of constantly thinking about all the stuff you have? You don't think about that. But you think about all the stuff you want to change, and so you talk about the negative karma. And it's hard for me. I get annoyed when I listen to people whine and complain, especially if I look at somebody. I can see that they're perfectly healthy, even though they're smoking cigarettes and drinking and treating themselves like shit. They live in a first world country, and they complain about aliens or overlords or elites, and as they drive off in their 4-wheel drive pickup truck with their dog and their wife and their 6-pack of beer and pull their boat behind them. They got all this stuff. If they just stopped and got over themselves for half a second and just enjoyed their life, they would stop thinking about this. But they can only think about this feeling that they have of that somebody's taking it away from them, and so they have to storm the Capitol, or they have to, whatever fucking ridiculous redneck bullshit nonsense they have to do to feel like, they're making some kind of a difference. When if they just simply went and enjoyed everything that they had and stopped being such a dickhead, so many people have so many wonderful things going on, and that's all good karma, all of it. Good karma is that. You don't even realize it's there. So we could even say that you've got 90% good karma and 10% bad karma. You're going to be thinking about that 10%. You're not going to be thinking about the 90%. So the partner, I don't know how this goes back to your original question, but the partner isn't affected by the lower self. The partner is the result of the lower self. There are two things, according to my teacher, there are two things that your lower self, that your unconscious mind, you have zero control over. And that is what you do for a living and who you marry. So I've been married and divorced. Technically I've had 2 marriages, even though the other one wasn't legal. I considered her my wife and she considered me her husband. And sadly, she passed away. But I've had the bad marriage, which was I married a woman that was basically my mother. All the same issues that I had with my mom, I had with this woman, and it was a miserable 10 years. And I left it, and it was like, I survived it. I felt like a Vietnam veteran surviving, this horrible marriage. And then I've gone on to create my life, and then I manifested, my dream, and I've had real love. So I know the difference. And that was also a result of my unconscious. I had worked through enough of the issues in my unconscious that I was able to manifest my perfect partner. So your partner is the result of the lower self. It's not your partner doesn't affect your lower self. Your partner is the manifestation of your lower self. So the way you've got that question asked, you're turning the other person into an outside agent that's doing something to you, which is how it feels. But the truth is, this is why, I don't have, when somebody complains about their spouse, I go, well, you picked them. Nobody forced you to marry that person. That was your doing. That doesn't mean I don't have sympathy for what they go through, because I've had a bad marriage. I've had no shortage of bad relationships. I know what they are, but I picked all of them. I picked every single one. I was unconscious at the time, but I picked my mom. I found the woman that most closely resembled my borderline, my mom with heavy borderline traits, and I married her, and I stayed with her for 10 years, and it was miserable. But it's not anybody's fault. It's not even her fault. I picked her. I chose her. So your partner doesn't affect your lower self. Your partner is your lower self. If you clean up your lower self, your partner will change. You'll get divorced, or she'll magically turn out to be wonderful. Something will happen, and somebody else will come along that reflects your current lower self state. Let's see. So Jade Dragon again. So do me a favor, Jade Dragon, welcome to the channel. I don't need this level of interaction with you. I want two things from you. Honest questions and honest feelings. I don't need the rest. Okay? Jameson-san, question. You said more you allow your own feelings, more you can allow others theirs. And be better friend. Same for soul journey. Is not some judgment needed to have healthy relations with others, including walking away? I mean, again, Jameson, you're conflating things here. One isn't the other. What your real question is that, and this is why I'm doing this, because you're taking me through this minefield of your overactive intellect, which is, I'm not judging you, that your intellect does that because that's how you avoid your feelings. You over-intellectualize things. Your intellect is trying to protect you from the feelings which you think are going to overwhelm you and destroy you. So that's why when I read you, I have to do this, because I have to navigate all that to get to the real feeling. So the real feeling has nothing to do with the first part. You said more you allow your own feelings, more you can allow others theirs, and be better friend. Same for soul journey. Your real question is, can I walk away? That's a whole other question. That has nothing to do with the rest of it. Can you walk away from abusive people? Yes. In fact, I will go so far as to say, no matter who they are, if they truly are abusive, if they truly do not see you and love you, if they're your mother, your father, your brother, your cousin, your uncle, your wife, your best friend, you must walk away. The kindest thing you can do for those people is to walk away and never talk to them again. But that means you have to determine, and this is why we need counselors, therapists, teachers, mentors, sponsors. We need these people because, through their help, if, going to group therapy, we can get an objective reflection on, your true friends will tell you they're no good for you. That person's destroying you. Then you have to walk away and never look back and break off all contact with them. So that's your real question. Your real question isn't that other stuff. Your real question is, I feel guilty walking away from abusive people. Is it okay to do that? And the answer to your question is yes. It is okay to do that. Okay, I don't see any other questions here. So that's the deal, guys. We've got the Manifestation Mastery course. We're going to be moving into a whole new series there called the Omnipotence series, and I'm going to be going into depth talking about this stuff even more. And to do that, if you're new to the channel, you go, which Jade Dragon, you're new to the channel, you're not a subscriber, right? How do I know that? Because you're asking a bunch of questions I've answered a billion times. Go to thunderwizard.com. Click around until you get to the Manifestation Mastery course and subscribe. You don't like it, you can unsubscribe. It's only month to month. You don't like it, you can unsubscribe next month. Big deal. I recommend, if you want the power to be able to do all this stuff, changing your narrative, the power for that comes from the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. You go to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong and subscribe there, and all you have to do is just scroll down to the video where it's number 1, Warrior 90-Day video number 1, and start there, press play, and just follow me, because I tell you exactly what to do. Just do exactly what I tell you to do. Do it every day. I guarantee you, you will change. I'm not going to guarantee that it'll be fun all the time. It's going to be powerful and amazing and all that, but there's going to be some times when you're going to have some uncomfortable feelings. I'm telling you now. Don't tell me I didn't warn you. But do you want to be able to be that highest level of who you are? Do you want to be that godlike figure that you are destined, your highest potential to be? This, in my experience, is the best way to do it. I combine the powers of Kundalini, Chi, and the heart mind, which is the lightning force. And I tell you how to use that and harness that to do this part here, which is to create your perfect life. If you want that, go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe at whatever level works for you. Kevin Kong, honest feeling. Thank you. We'll keep supporting you on Patreon. So you are on Patreon? Oh, Kevin Kong. Okay, I'm getting Jade Dragon and Kevin Kong mixed up. All right, Kevin. Thanks, and thank you for your support. And I hope that that whatever subscription you're at is continue to work for you. And Jade Dragon, you need to subscribe, just so that you won't annoy me with your inaccurate questions. All right, that's it. I'll see you guys when I see you. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you next time. Let's see, what do I want here? I want this. Okay, hang on. Somebody's asking a question which is worth my time. 7LVX777 question: is phase 1 done for 90 days, then phase 2 for another 90 days, then phase 3 Mao Shan after that? No, that's not how that works. The Mao Shan, which is maoshan.thunderwizard.com, the Mao Shan is an elite practice that is done in tandem with the 90 day. Now, not everybody is going to want to be an elite spirit fighter. I got to be honest, not everybody can handle the level of energy that the Mao Shan brings. The level of energy, some people can't handle it. I'm not talking anybody out of it. I think everybody should do it. I'm just telling you the truth. So if you're doing the Mao Shan, you will have to also do the 90 days. So you're going to have to do the 90-day lightning Qigong while doing this. If you don't want to do this, then there's just this. So it's not you do 1 and then 2 and then Mao Shan. You can go sign up for Mao Shan now. Sign up for it now and then sign up for the 90 day. I can't force you, but it is my personal requirement that people, if they're doing the Mao Shan, they have to do the 90 day. It is not my requirement that if you're doing the 90 day, you have to do the Mao Shan. So no, don't overthink it. They're separate but connected. You don't have to wait. So you can sign up if you're in the 90 days, sign up now, and you can sign up for this. Now's the time to do it because, why? Because we have Dr. Manhattan, which is going to be running out in, whoops, where's Dr. Manhattan? The Dr. Manhattan special is going to run out on July 1st. So if you want to get started with that now, go do that and then subscribe to the 90 day. All right, did I answer your question or did I confuse you? All right, so that's it. All right, Ron Reen C just got here. Well, you can rewind because I'm done. I'm walking away, but you get to rewind and start from the beginning. All right, that's it for me. I will see you guys when I see you. Take care.